That's a serious vehicle for a Friday night. Where's a car like that come from?
From a dealership. I wrote the check myself.
Must be nice. What line of work puts you in something?
Hashtag racist cop stops black judge at gas station 4, driving a luxury SUV. $10 million lawsuit followed. Officer Brian Calloway, badge number 3847 of the Meridian Police Department, was finishing a routine patrol on a Friday evening when he spotted a pearl-white Lamborghini Urus pulling into the Shell station on Jefferson Avenue. He circled the block once, came back, and watched a black man in his early 50s step out of the vehicle in a loosened tie and dress shirt. He sat in his patrol car for 45 seconds making no calls, running no plates, checking no databases. Then he activated his lights, pulled in behind the Lamborghini to block it completely, stepped out with his hand resting on his weapon, and walked toward the man at the pump with the unhurried confidence of someone who had already decided what was happening before he arrived. He told the man that a vehicle like this in this part of town meant one of two things. Either it was stolen, or it had been purchased with money that didn't come from anything legal. He demanded to know which one it was. When Judge Raymond Carter produced his registration, his driver's license, his insurance documents, and then his official state judicial credentials showing he was a sitting Superior Court judge with 21 years on the bench, Calloway told him that documents could be forged, that judges didn't make the kind of money this car cost, and that he was seriously considering impounding the vehicle and taking Carter in for questioning. What Calloway didn't know was that every word of that conversation was being recorded by 3 gas station security cameras and by a woman at the adjacent pump who had been filming on her phone for straight minutes. That Carter had purchased the Lamborghini outright with his own legally earned salary and investment income, and that the man he was threatening with impoundment and arrest had spent 21 years presiding over cases exactly like the one Calloway was about to create for himself. Before we go further, what city or country are you watching from? Drop it in the comments right now. We love seeing where our community is tuning in from. If you believe pulling into a gas station while black and successful should never be treated as probable cause for a criminal investigation, then like this video and subscribe because this story ends exactly the way it should, and the price tag is one that Calloway is still paying. Raymond Carter had been a Superior Court judge for 21 years, and before that a prosecutor for 9. 30 years of his life had been given to the law, to its processes, its standards, its insistence that facts matter more than assumptions and that evidence must precede conclusion. He understood the law the way a craftsman understands his tools. Not theoretically, personally. He had held it in his hands every working day for 3 decades and had shaped it into verdicts that affected real people's real lives. He was also, on this particular Friday evening, a 54-year-old man who had just finished presiding over the 4th day of a complex civil trial and wanted nothing more than to fill his tank and drive home. Carter had purchased the pearl-white Lamborghini Urus 14 months earlier. It had not been an impulsive decision. He had researched it for almost 2 years, run the numbers carefully against his salary and his investment portfolio, and concluded that after 3 decades of disciplined financial living, he had earned one significant indulgence. He paid for it in full. No financing, no payment plan. The car was registered in his name at his home address in Whitmore Heights, one of the most established residential neighborhoods in the city. His insurance premium was higher than most people's monthly rent, and he paid it without complaint every quarter. He loved that car not because it announced wealth. He loved it because when he was 17 years old, working double shifts at a grocery store to save money for community college application fees, he had seen one on the cover of a magazine and made himself a private promise. The Lamborghini in his driveway was a conversation between the man he was now and the boy he had been then. Nobody else needed to understand it. Carter pulled into the Shell station at 6:48 in the evening, still wearing his court dress, charcoal suit, white shirt, tie loosened 2 inches below the collar. He had removed his judicial robe before leaving chambers, as he always did. He parked at pump number 3, stepped out, inserted his card, and reached for the nozzle. The evening was cooling down, and the station was moderately busy with end-of-workday traffic. He stood beside the Lamborghini thinking about the weekend. A drive up the coastal highway tomorrow morning. Maybe lunch somewhere new. He didn't notice the patrol car until the lights came on. Officer Brian Calloway had 11 years with the Meridian Police Department and a personnel file that his supervisors had chosen, collectively and repeatedly, not to examine too carefully. 22 civilian complaints over 11 years. 16 of them filed by Black or Hispanic individuals. Racial profiling allegations, unlawful stop reports, one excessive force complaint that had been reviewed, classified as inconclusive, and quietly buried in a drawer where it remained untouched for 4 years. His lieutenant had written in his last performance evaluation that Calloway had strong instincts for identifying suspicious activity and wasn't afraid to act on them. That sentence had been written after the 14th complaint. Nobody had connected those two facts in the same document until a federal investigation forced them to. Calloway had been 2 blocks from the Shell station when the Lamborghini caught his attention. He told himself later, in the internal affairs interview that would help end his career, that something about the situation felt off. He could not specify what. He could not identify a traffic violation. He had not run the plates before making his approach. He had not received any report of a stolen vehicle matching that description. He had seen a black man stepping out of a $240,000 SUV, and that image had not matched the template in his head for who belonged in a car like that, in this neighborhood, on a Friday evening. Everything that followed came from that mismatch between reality and the template. Calloway activated his lights, pulled his cruiser directly behind the Lamborghini, and stepped out. His hand rested near his weapon, not gripping it, but close enough that the proximity was visible and deliberate. He covered the 15 feet between his car and pump number 3 with the measured walk of someone performing authority rather than exercising it. Carter looked up from the pump display and felt the familiar weight settle in his chest. He had experienced versions of this before. Never quite this formal, never with lights and a blocked exit, but the shape of it was recognizable. He kept his hands visible, one still resting on the fuel nozzle, and waited. "Evening," Calloway said, stopping 6 feet away. His eyes moved between Carter and the Lamborghini the way an appraiser looks at something whose value he doubts. "Nice vehicle." "Thank you," Carter said evenly. "Where'd you get it?" Carter felt the question land. He took one quiet breath. "I purchased it." "Is there a problem, officer? Have I committed a traffic violation?" Calloway tilted his head slightly. "A car like this in this area on a Friday night. You understand why that might draw some attention. I understand that I'm fueling my legally registered vehicle at a gas station," Carter said. His voice was measured and precise, the same tone he used when a witness was drifting from the facts and needed to be redirected. "I'd like to know the specific reason for this stop." "I'm asking the questions," Calloway said. His posture shifted, shoulders squaring, chin lifting slightly. "License, registration, proof of insurance." "Now." Carter reached slowly into his jacket, narrating his movements the way he had advised defendants to do in countless pretrial hearings when discussing police interactions. "I'm reaching into my jacket pocket for my wallet." He produced his driver's license and handed it to Calloway without argument. "My registration and insurance are in the glove compartment. I'll need to reach inside the vehicle." "Do it slowly." Carter opened the driver's door, reached into the glove compartment, and retrieved both documents. He returned to where Calloway stood and handed them over. The registration was completely clean. Carter's name, his address in Whitmore Heights, the vehicle's VIN, all matching perfectly. The insurance was current and valid with a premium that reflected the car's value. Calloway studied the documents for a long time. Longer than any legitimate verification required. His jaw moved slightly, the way a person's jaw moves when they are searching for a problem that the evidence isn't providing. "This your primary residence?" Calloway asked, tapping the address on the registration. "Yes." "You work nearby?" "I work at the courthouse on Madison Street," Carter said. "I've just come from there." Calloway looked at the loosened tie, the dress shirt, the suit jacket. Then he looked at the Lamborghini again. Something in his expression suggested that the combination still wasn't computing for him. "What do you do at the courthouse?" Carter paused. He answered the question directly and without flourish. "I'm a superior court judge." I've been on the bench for 21 years. Calloway's expression didn't change the way it should have. There was no recalibration, no visible reassessment. He handed the documents back to Carter and said the words that would be played on national television within 48 hours. Judges don't make the kind of money this car costs. I'm going to need you to explain to me how you were able to purchase a vehicle at this price point. The woman at pump number 2 had been recording for 3 minutes and 14 seconds. Carter felt the anger rise through his chest like something with temperature. He channeled it the way he had learned to channel it over 30 years. Downward, inward, converted into precision rather than volume. "Officer," he said quietly, "you have my license. You have my registration. You have my proof of insurance. All of it is legitimate and verifiable. You have no legal basis to question my finances or to continue this stop. I have committed no traffic violation. I own this vehicle lawfully." "I'm not satisfied with the documentation," Calloway said. "On what specific grounds?" "Documentation can be forged." Carter looked at him steadily. "Run the VIN number. It will match the registration in under 60 seconds. Call the DMV. Call the courthouse and ask for the Superior Court Clerk's office. Any of those 3 steps will confirm everything I've told you. Which one would you like to start with?" Calloway didn't move toward his patrol car to make any of those calls. He stood where he was, his hand still resting near his weapon, and said, "I'm considering impounding this vehicle pending a full ownership verification. You have no legal authority to impound a vehicle whose registration you are currently holding and which matches every document I've provided," Carter said. His voice had taken on the specific quality it carried in his courtroom when he was about to rule on something and wanted no ambiguity in the record. "What you are doing right now is an unlawful detention without probable cause, and I am telling you clearly and for the record that I do not consent to any search of this vehicle or any further detention." The woman at pump 2 took a step closer. "Officer, he's showed you everything. Why are you still questioning him?" Calloway turned to her sharply. "Ma'am, this is a police matter. Step back." "I'm standing at a public gas pump," she said, "and I'm recording everything." Calloway turned back to Carter. "Step away from the vehicle." "I will not," Carter said. "You have given me no lawful reason to do so." A second patrol car pulled into the station. A younger officer stepped out, looked at the scene. The Lamborghini, the well-dressed black man, the recording bystander, Calloway's aggressive posture, and walked over with the careful expression of someone immediately aware that something had gone wrong before he arrived. Carter addressed him directly. "Officer, I'm Judge Raymond Carter from the Superior Court. I've provided this officer with my license, registration, insurance, and judicial credentials. He has no probable cause for this stop and is now threatening to impound my vehicle without legal basis. I'm requesting that you contact your supervisor before this situation becomes significantly worse for your department." The younger officer looked at Calloway. "Brian, maybe we should—" "I've got this," Calloway said. Carter reached into his jacket and produced his judicial credentials, the official state identification every Superior Court judge carried, laminated, holographic seal, photograph, full title, court assignment. He held them out to Calloway. Calloway took them, looked at Carter, looked back at the credentials. "These could be counterfeit," he said. The woman at pump 2 said, out loud to no one in particular, "I cannot believe what I am watching." Carter's voice dropped to something very quiet and very final. "Officer Calloway, I have given you my driver's license, my vehicle registration, my proof of insurance, and my official judicial credentials. I have offered you 3 independent means of verifying my identity in under 60 seconds. You have refused all of them. You have threatened to impound my legally owned vehicle. You have questioned my ability to afford a car I paid for outright. And you have done all of this without a single piece of evidence that I have done anything wrong." He paused. "I want you to think very carefully about your next sentence." Calloway's hand moved toward his handcuffs. A third vehicle entered the gas station. Unmarked, a sergeant in full uniform stepped out, took in the entire scene in 4 seconds, and walked directly toward the pump with the expression of someone who had just seen the worst possible version of a situation they had hoped not to find. "What is happening here?" Sergeant Delgado asked. The woman at Pump 2 answered before anyone else could. "This officer has been harassing this man for 12 minutes. The man showed him his license, registration, insurance, and judge's credentials. The officer told him judges don't make enough money for this car and threatened to impound it." Delgado looked at Carter. Something shifted in his face, recognition. "Judge Carter." Carter nodded slowly. "Sergeant Delgado, you testified in my courtroom approximately 3 years ago. The Harmon construction fraud case." Delgado remembered. He had spent 2 days on the witness stand while Judge Carter questioned him with the methodical patience of someone who had done this for 2 decades. "Yes, sir." He turned to Calloway. "Give me everything. Right now." Calloway handed over the documents. Delgado reviewed them in 12 seconds. He looked at the registration, the license, the insurance, the judicial credentials. He looked at the Lamborghini. He looked at Calloway. "Did you run the plates before you approached?" Calloway hesitated. "I had reasonable suspicion based on—" "Did you run the plates?" "No." "Did you receive a stolen vehicle report matching this description?" "No." "But did you have any articulable probable cause before you activated your lights?" Silence. Delgado handed the documents back to Carter with both hands. "Judge Carter, I am sincerely sorry for this. This stop was not lawful and should not have happened." He turned to Calloway with an expression that had closed entirely. "Badge and weapon. You're suspended effective immediately pending full investigation." Calloway's hands were unsteady as he unclipped his badge. Carter collected his documents and looked at Calloway one final time. His voice was completely even. "You saw a black man at a gas station and concluded criminality. That conclusion was not based on evidence. It was not based on observation. It was not based on law. It was based on the assumption that someone who looks like me cannot legitimately own something like that." He gestured toward the Lamborghini without looking at it. "That assumption just ended your career, Officer Calloway. And I will see you in federal court." He got into the Lamborghini, started the engine, and drove away. The woman at Pump 2 uploaded the video before she finished fueling her car. By Saturday morning, the video had 9 million views. By Sunday evening, 17. By Monday, it was the lead story on 4 national news programs and had been analyzed by 3 civil rights attorneys on live television, each of whom used the phrase textbook racial profiling within their first 60 seconds of commentary. The audio was the most damaging part. Calloway's voice saying judges don't make the kind of money this car costs played on a continuous loop across every major platform. Legal experts pointed out that the statement revealed not confusion but conviction. Calloway hadn't been uncertain about Carter's identity. He had been certain that a black man's legitimate success was inherently suspicious. Attorney Vivian Cross filed the federal lawsuit 6 days after the incident. The complaint was 44 pages and sought $10 million in damages. It detailed the unlawful stop, the unlawful detention, the refusal to accept valid documentation, the threat of vehicle impoundment without legal basis, and the pattern of prior complaints that the Meridian Police Department had systematically failed to address. The internal investigation that followed examined all 22 complaints in Calloway's file simultaneously for the first time. What the investigators found, looking at them together rather than individually, was a pattern so clear that the department's own attorneys advised against contesting the lawsuit at trial. 16 of the 22 complaints involved black or Hispanic individuals driving or standing near vehicles above a certain value threshold in neighborhoods Calloway patrolled. The same basic template repeated with minor variations across 11 years. A luxury vehicle, a black or Hispanic driver, a stop without documented probable cause, documents provided and questioned, escalation until the driver became visibly distressed or a supervisor arrived. 22 times. 1 complaint had resulted in a written warning. The other 21 had been marked inconclusive and closed. The city's legal team watched the gas station footage, read the complaint, reviewed the personnel file, and made their recommendation within 3 weeks. fighting this case in front of a jury that would watch Calloway tell a superior court judge that judges don't earn enough money for a Lamborghini, while ignoring judicial credentials, while the judge offered 3 independent verification methods that Calloway refused. There was no version of that trial the city could win. They settled for the full $10 million 8 months after Carter filed suit. The written apology came from the mayor and the police chief, delivered in person in Carter's chambers. Carter accepted both without warmth and made clear that the apology addressed the incident but not the system that had produced it and protected it for 11 years. The settlement required independent audits of all vehicle stop data going back 5 years, sorted by race of the driver and value of the vehicle. The audit revealed that Calloway's pattern was not unique. 6 other officers showed statistically significant disparities in their stop rates for luxury vehicles driven by minority individuals. All 6 were placed under enhanced supervision. 3 were ultimately terminated. Police Chief Warren Dodd, who had signed off on Calloway's last 3 performance evaluations, including the one praising his instincts, resigned under pressure 4 months after the settlement. His retirement was not celebrated. Brian Calloway was terminated for cause 30 days after his suspension. He lost his pension after 11 years of service. He lost his benefits. The video of him telling a judge that his success was financially implausible followed him to every job application he submitted in the following years. At 41 years old, he was working logistics at a distribution warehouse for hourly wages. His marriage ended 14 months after the incident, the strain of financial collapse and public shame proving more than the relationship could hold. His 2 teenage daughters had stopped bringing friends to their home. The gas station security footage was entered into the training curriculum at 7 police academies as a case study in how bias operates not as a conscious decision but as a default conclusion. How an officer can look at legitimate documentation and see forgery, look at verified credentials and see fraud, look at earned success and see crime, all without ever recognizing that the only thing producing those conclusions is the color of the person holding the paperwork. Raymond Carter continued serving on the Superior Court bench. He was appointed to the State Appellate Court 2 years after the settlement, one of the highest judicial appointments in the state. He still drove the pearl white Lamborghini. He had added a dashcam, front and rear, running continuously, not because he believed it would prevent what happened at that gas station from happening again, but because he had learned that documentation was the only language that certain conversations could be resolved in. He used a significant portion of his settlement to establish the Carter Institute for Judicial Access, a nonprofit providing legal resources and representation to low-income individuals navigating the court system without adequate support. In its first 2 years, the institute assisted over 300 people. Many of them had encountered the same basic experience Carter had encountered at that gas station, a system that had decided what they were before examining what they had actually done. He still stopped at that Shell station on Jefferson Avenue on his way home from late court sessions. He still stood beside his car and thought about weekend drives and his mother's voice and the boy he had been at 17 with a magazine cover and a private promise. Nobody bothered him anymore. The Meridian Police Department was too afraid of becoming the next viral story to let that happen. The lesson requires no interpretation. A man stopped at a gas station after a long day of work. He produced every document requested. He offered every verification available. He identified himself completely and accurately. None of it mattered, because the officer looking at him had already completed his assessment before stepping out of the patrol car. Legitimate documents became potentially forged documents. Verifiable credentials became possibly counterfeit credentials. Earned wealth became presumed criminality. 22 prior complaints. 11 years. 1 department. 0 accountability. Until the cameras were rolling and the right person was standing at the pump. Justice cost $10 million, 1 police chief's resignation, 1 department's complete restructuring, and Brian Calloway's freedom, his career, his pension, his marriage, and whatever version of himself he had believed he was before that Friday evening at a gas station where he made 30 seconds of assumptions that he will spend the rest of his life being defined by. If you believe that success while black should never be treated as evidence of crime, Share this story with everyone in your life who still needs to understand what racial profiling actually looks like when it runs out of places to hide. What specific reforms would make unlawful stops like this impossible rather than just expensive? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you believe that a badge should represent equal protection for everyone, subscribe. Because we are not done until the system that protected 22 complaints without consequence is the story that never gets to happen again.